We ignored, we sabotaged early treatment. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives and didn't have to lose their lives because we just sabotaged early treatment because I guess the President of the United States at the time advocated for it. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives and didn't have to lose their lives because we just sabotaged early treatment. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives and didn't have to lose their lives because we just sabotaged early treatment. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives and didn't have to lose their lives because we just sabotaged early treatment.
What I will say, and how I feel I can chalk this up to another small win, is out of all the meetings I've ever had with congressmen and women and senators, with legislators, I've never been in the Capitol building.
Really?
And we have a meeting in the Capitol building. So I've never had that. So this is a, to me, that's a win.
Yeah.
That we've made at least enough of an impact that, you know, we're
The invitation's there.
being invited into
After
the
being
Capitol
in town
building to
for
talk.
3 days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not even the
Sooner than
three.
that,
It's not even the 3 days. It's that whole. It's February 23rd when we started. So Adelanto, California to today. You know,
Sure.
it's led to
Yeah.
this. I just hope that you know, I hope they don't think that we're going to accept the dog and pony show. You know what I mean? That you're not wooing us by bringing us in here for a meeting. You know, that they take it seriously,
Right.
and not thinking, oh, we'll just wow them with being in the Capitol building.
But as well, having the opportunity to live stream it and everybody see the meeting as though they're here.
Well, I think it's important that the people are involved in it. I don't know how we're going to be able to get their questions asked or answered, but we're going to do our best to touch on everything that we've talked about over the last, you know, since February 23rd to today. We're going to try to cover those things, you know, and hopefully that gets their answers that they may have, or questions answered they may have. But honestly, I mean, we made it this far, and I don't think at the beginning of this there was a whole lot of people that thought we were serious and that we were going to come this far. So yeah, it's a win knowing that we're coming this far.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Oh, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Nice coming.
I'm Alexa.
Brian Browsey,
Hi.
co-organizer of People's Convoy.
You met.
Hello.
Josh
Brian Browsey, co-organizer of People's Convoy.
Let's do that afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Time.
I'll have room.
Have everybody.
Hi, sir. Brian Browsey, co-organizer
Brian,
of People's Convoy.
Nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it.
Have a chair.
Great to meet you, Chris Morrison, Trust.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
Jerry Stitz, co-organizer.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
Alan Kelly, emergency truck driver.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
Johnny Brooks, nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Colin.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Let's have a chair. Is this the whole group?
Yeah.
I think Senator Cruz is on his way. So, here he is. Perfect timing.
How you doing?
Brian Coleman. Nice to meet you.
His handshakes all over. Morning, Ted.
Morning. Morning, sir. Brian Browsey, co-organizer of People's Convoy.
Jerry Stitz, thank you.
Alan Kelly.
Excellent. Welcome.
Just real quick, are you guys, who's press here? Were you guys, okay, yeah, we're not live streaming the meeting. We're doing the avail after.
That was part of the agreement, was the live stream for the meeting.
The meeting?
Yeah, the meeting, the
Oh, okay.
media otherwise was outside, but the actual live streaming for, we have drivers that are sitting in Hagerstown.
Okay, I thought you guys just
Convoy that
wanted
wanna
it
be
for.
a
That's
part
fine.
of it.
I have no problem with it.
Okay, that's
Any
fine. I
problem
thought you
with
guys
live
wanted
streaming?
it after.
Thanks.
As far as regular media, they shouldn't be in here.
Well-
He's been following us. For,
No, that's why I wanted to clarify, who is your media and who is regular?
So it's these three.
So we don't have any charlatans.
Okay, so can you, sorry, we'll grab you guys for after.
No problem.
Okay.
Exactly. So there's no better job than this one.
So, I guess let's keep this pretty informal discussion. We'll have a little bit, Ted and I will probably do some statements when we get the main press group in here. But, I'm here to listen. Want to hear exactly, what, I've read your internet page, that type of thing, so I understand, the basic cause you're fighting for here, and it's freedom. I really appreciate that, but I'm here to listen. Ted, you?
Yeah, look, I want to echo that I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you guys and hear what you have to say. I think what you're doing is important. You are standing up and speaking out, not just for truckers across the country, but for Americans of all stripes, of all professions and livelihood. The idea that the government would try to dictate the health care decisions you make in your life and your family, it's fundamentally wrong. And, I think what started in Canada with Canadian truckers was powerful, it was inspirational, and it actually spoke volumes when government leaders tried to stomp it down. They were so scared of ordinary citizens standing up and speaking out, and what y'all are doing is very much the same. It is important. Ron and I in the Senate have been leading the fight against these mandates. These mandates are wrong. It ought to be your decision whether or not you get vaccinated. If you decide to get vaccinated, great, that's your choice. If you decide not to, great, that's your choice. But it's not the job of some petty government tyrant to force that decision on you and to say you're going to lose your livelihood if you don't comply. And so I'll just echo what Ron said, which is I want to hear from you guys in terms of how it's impacting you and what led you all to be part of this convoy and where do you hope we go from here? So
I'd suggest, you do it in the order you want to speak in, but introduce yourselves, kind of what your background is and really what your objectives are. I could probably start with you, Brian.
I'll let Chris start.
I'll do an introduction and set the stage. Senators, thank you for your time. It's very important after the truckers made a trip across the country and what they saw that you're taking the time to meet with us. We want to thank you for your service to this country and for taking this meeting. This was an incredibly peaceful movement. It took off without incident and was a merger of several convoys into what is the People's Convoy. This convoy is called the People's Convoy because it's for the people. But what's important to understand to set the stage for this discussion is why we're here. And we are here because of the coordinated abuse of emergency powers. Emergency powers were never meant to be used in the way in which they were used. It was never contemplated that something that would be used for a few days for a hurricane or an earthquake would be weaponized against the American people. It has been weaponized in such a manner that people that were not designed to ever have that kind of power, like state, local officials, and the federal government, could trample the Constitution and make courts unable to enforce constitutional rights. And that's a big part of what we're here. Governors were using emergency powers like Governor Newsom to award no-bid contracts to his cronies and divert their tax revenues to friends. They did it to meddle in elections by changing the ballots and mail-in ballots and elections. They did it to force people to wear masks maybe a year or more after the science disproved its efficacy. They did that to affect people's ability to worship in this country while they kept liquor stores open, so you can get wasted, but you can't worship. This was the most massive transfer of wealth from the little guy to big multinational corporations by shutting down small businesses, the heart of American enterprise, in favor of the Amazons of the world and the Best Buys and the Walmarts. Just a travesty. But what's even worse is the deaths from the vaccines and the deaths of people's livelihood, because that's death too. The heart of America is the working man and woman, and this is what the People's Movement is about. It represents the heart of America. And they lost their jobs because they weren't getting they didn't want to get vaccinated, or they had pre-existing medical conditions, or guess what? Their doctor just plain old recommended that they shouldn't. And because of that, they shouldn't. They had, like you said, government officials forcing medical decisions above and beyond a doctor's recommendation, which is awful. Right. We've turned our back on the Nuremberg Code as if it didn't matter. my family I was raised Jewish and my mom's Jewish. We don't forget what the Nuremberg Code is about. We need to consider making that law. And the courts were handcuffed. Ultimately, they were handcuffed because you go to court to enforce your constitutional rights. And the court said their hands are tied because there's emergency powers. Would you believe that the courts can't enforce the Americans' constitutional rights for 2 years? It's unfathomable. So I suppose that leads us to what we want and why we're here. I'm just setting the stage for the discussion so it's easier.
Great.
This isn't just about ending the mandates. The amending the mandates is the beginning. Obviously, the COVID was magically declared over, like a magic unicorn. And suddenly they're rolling everything.
Miraculously
Miraculously
right when the
gone.
polls turn south.
Right, just in time, right?
It's amazing how sensitive, quote, the science is to political polling.
Yeah, the
By the
political
way,
science.
You see the chart behind me of the number of cases. Had all the mandates worked, you know, it would have ended here, right? It would have
Right.
just,
Right.
but they obviously didn't work. I mean, I think you have to, I hope the powers to be, as they call them, the COVID cartel,
Right.
will finally admit that the response to COVID, after 960,000 deaths, the human toll, the economic devastation, what we've done to our children, what we've done to workers, again, the little guy.
Yeah,
Now,
you
I
got,
hope they will, at some point in time, admit that their response was a miserable
Yeah.
failure, okay? But
we hope so. Look, I gotta get to the truckers here in a second. I just wanted to set the stage for us, because it's so important. But look, we're here for accountability, right? When the dust settles, we gotta go back and do an after-action review and figure out how on earth we got here. How did the emergency powers get abused, and how do we stop that from ever happening again? Americans feel like they've been living in a third world country. The immigrants who built this country themselves feel like they moved clear across the world to escape dictators and tyrants, and ended up feeling like it's right here on our doorstep. And they saw Trudeau use emergency powers
Yep.
himself,
Yep.
weaponized against his people, to take peaceful protesters and call them domestic terrorists and freeze their bank accounts.
Right.
It shouldn't be lost on all of us that Americans are concerned that that can happen here.
Sure.
We were hoping that we can get support for a Senate floor announcement of what you heard today and the stories from the truckers and how it reaches you, because it's important for the American people to hear it. We're hoping that you might consider a sense of the Senate resolution with a roll call vote, so that we can see where all participants in our elected government officials sit on the issues of civil liberties and freedom. We want to consider how these emergency power laws can be amended at all levels to avoid the extended use that disrupts the power structure of our constitutional republic. And finally, we'd like to consider whether there ought to be expedited constitutional processes here in the Subcommittee for Constitution and the Judiciary Committee, whether or not there could be an expedited constitutional process, because there seem to be cases that are stuck for years. And Americans are losing faith that there's a process for the defense of the Constitution. So I'm here as the chairman of the American Foundation for Civil Liberties and Freedom. We are joined with the Unity Project and Drs. Cole, Alexander, and many, and the Defeat the Mandates movement. We're here to support, we were supporting the doctors for years that first risked their livelihoods to come out and speak up. And many of them lost their livelihoods. They were there. But now we're here with the heart of America, the People's Convoy. They represent the men and women of this country here, and you would not believe the stories and sights that they've experienced. I can't wait for you to hear it. And Brian Brosnan here is the leader of the People's Convoy. Is no stranger to these halls. He's been lobbying for truckers, the truckers in the trucking industry for years and stepping up. So just wanted to make it clear that he's been here before and he's standing up for us now. I'd like them to share their stories with you.
Great.
And we're so honored to be here. Thank you very much.
look forward to hearing it.
I'm not gonna go into my personal story necessarily. I'll just tell you a little bit about the People's Convoy.
Where are you from?
Originally from Lidditz, Pennsylvania, and now reside in Northwest Ohio.
Okay, great.
I'm not the leader, as many try to put me there, but I'm a co-organizer. This is really the People's Convoy. There's at least 100 people that I work closely with in organizing and putting this together through multiple organizations like his. Volunteers on the ground right now working really hard to keep our drivers safe, to keeping the grounds cleaned up, even as little as cigarette butts picked up, and all the organizers that have worked for weeks on end to try to put something together, as inspired by our Canadian brothers and sisters up north that had stood up. As we rolled across the country from Adelanto, California to here to Hagerstown, where we're currently residing, which, by the way, you should know that we currently have a convoy loop in the Beltway right now. Just put that out
Yeah,
there.
what is the size of the convoy?
Last night.
As far as trucks and RVs, we're right around 1,000 strong right now, and more coming.
More came in last night. We're actually, so in Oklahoma, the only law enforcement agency that really put out a count for us. Wow, this guy.
Oh, good, he's calm.
Third baseman.
Oklahoma State Police put out that we were
7,000.
7,000 vehicles and stretched 30 miles long coming across
According
their
to them.
interstate. When we convoy, we grow and we shrink, and we grow and we shrink, because all across the country, people want to participate in it, but they do not.
So I
be
take
able
it that
to
means there are a
go.
bunch of vehicles that are not trucks then?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, and that's the other thing I wanted to specify, is that this isn't just a truck convoy, this is truly the people's convoy. We have folks here that are in RVs, motorhomes, motorcycles, rode all the way from California to here on motorcycles to join us. We got folks in cars, they're sleeping in their car every night, they're sleeping in tents outside of their car, outside of the motorhome, on their, I seen a guy last night sleeping on his motorcycle with a tarp up over him.
Wow.
Because of the rain. Truly the people's convoy. It's not a trucker's convoy, and even though the truckers might have been the one to lead the charge or step up initially, we're not even doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for our families, we're doing it for our communities, and we're doing it for the people of the United States, and truthfully, we're doing it for people around the world. Not only is this a violation of our constitutional rights, but this is a violation of your God-given rights. You should never be mandated to put such a thing in your body. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not the one to tell you whether it's good or not. That's what the over there for. But I do know, as a person that served in the Army, and as a person that cares deeply about my country, and that cares about my community and my family and my fellow drivers and my fellow Americans, that this is wrong, and I can see that without having to worry about the signs. The People's Convoy has come together and created a community. We are a massive community, and I would encourage any senator, congressman or woman, any governor, mayor, city council members, school board members, to come out and truly see what this community is. As we came across the country, we've had millions of people. I thought thousands. But when you include all the different convoys that have converged into one, it equals to be millions of people across the country that lined the highways and stood on overpasses and freeways. We've had attorney generals across the country wanting to meet us on these bridge rallies that they had. We didn't plan that. That wasn't part of our planning. That's the communities doing it themselves, knowing that we're coming through and showing that support. I don't think I've ever in my lifetime, and according to my mother, even in her lifetime, has she ever seen such a movement like this coming across the country. This isn't a right issue or a left issue. This is an American issue. It's time that we put the divide to the side. Everybody can go back to hating each other if that's what they want to do when we get on the other side of this. But it's time that we take a step back and think. Use our brains. Use our hearts. Don't worry about your politics or your lobbyists or your special interest groups. Just care about the people. Something I've said in moving across this country was that it's time to remind the United States government, and truly governments around the world, that they work for us.
Amen.
That's all I'm going to leave it at, because it's not my story to tell. It's the people of the convoy story to tell.
I will say, in Wisconsin, I'm sensing that political realignment. People showing up, fighting for freedom. Democrat, Republican, doesn't make any difference. They're concerned about what has happened to their children, what's happened to their lives, what's happened to their freedom. And I agree with you. I think this is a unique moment. That maybe we can accomplish that goal that President Biden stated was his #1 goal, to unify and heal this nation. He's done the exact opposite. Maybe this movement can work toward that goal, which is a worthy goal.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
The Senate passed, and I know he's got the list of who voted what, but they passed to end the state of emergency by one vote, and there were several that didn't bother to vote. To me, that's just as bad as voting no on this, regardless of party. It's just as bad as voting no. It goes, maybe, goes to the House. The president already came out and said he would veto it.
Yeah.
It went to his desk. Is there some way of appealing to House members to, one, let it hit the floor, two, to put political differences to the side for this, to be bipartisan? He touched on all the legal stuff that I'm just not your guy for. I'm not. I'm just a voice in America, as blue-collar worker as you get.
Look, the challenge is, this is where you guys, your voice is so important. Because you've got to get some people willing to cross party lines and do the right thing. As you noted, we had the vote to end the state of emergency. That was the right thing to do. The week before, we had two different votes. We had our vote on an amendment that Mike Lee and I introduced to end all of the Biden vaccine mandates. So to end the mandate for active duty military, to end the mandate for federal employees, to end the mandate for federal contractors, and to end the mandate, the OSHA mandate that the Supreme Court struck down for private employers. And we voted on that. And then we had a separate vote on an amendment I introduced to cut off all federal funds to any governmental entity that mandated vaccines for kids. The only thing I can think of worse than the government trying to force you to make health care decisions is the government trying to force your kids to make health care decisions without the parents making the decision. I think that's fundamentally wrong. If you got a 5-year-old, it's no politician's business whether or not they choose to get this COVID vaccine. On both of those amendments, number one, every single Democrat in the Senate voted no. All of them. Number two, as you noted, we would have won, except Republicans weren't there. 4 Republicans were missing, and I have no idea why.
It's just as bad as voting no.
I was glad I didn't have a camera in my face at that moment, because I would have said some things that my mother wouldn't have approved of. But I thought it was ridiculous that we didn't show up and stand up and do the right thing. In terms of the House, look, to move anything to the floor of the House takes Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker. What you've got to have is you've got to have some Democrats in the House willing to break ranks. If it's a straight party line vote, then Pelosi and the Democrats will just refuse to vote on it. So there've got to be some Democrats in the House, and there are a bunch of Democrats in districts across the country, particularly districts that Trump carries, who are scared out of their minds and know they're getting ready to lose the House, who, if they had any sense, would say we ought to vote on this. Now, whether they do or not, whether they have the courage to stand up to Pelosi, that's really where y'all come in, because it's the only thing that's going to infuse courage is if they realize they're losing their jobs if they don't discover some courage. Because they're not going to get it magically just waking up one morning. It's going to take, they've got to be more scared of the voters than they are of Nancy Pelosi. Right now, they're listening to party bosses. Until that changes, the House is not going to vote on this.
Let me answer it this way. What crisis that America's faced did we not come together as a people? Whether it's a national crisis like 9/11, whether it's a hurricane in Florida where truckers haul down construction material and Americans show up to help rebuild, or tornadoes in the Midwest, or fires in the West. I mean, we always come together in the midst of tragedy, don't we? But not during the pandemic. No. The pandemic was politicized almost from the start. Yep. We ignored, we sabotaged early treatment. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives that didn't have to lose their lives because we just sabotaged early treatment because I guess the President of the United States at the time advocated for it. So there's something else going on here. And as Ted just described, COVID has become completely partisan in the political realm. But again, what gives me hope is what you're doing, what I'm sensing in Wisconsin, quite honestly, what I'm sensing with our January 24th event, COVID-19, a second opinion that both Pierre and Paul attended. There needs to be an awakening. There has to be an awakening. But unfortunately, right now it's politicized, but it's movements like yours. It's ordinary Americans that need to have their eyes opened and understand there's something going on here.
The awakening's happening right now. The awakening is circling the Beltway as we're talking to you right now. That convoy is rolling 2 wide and is probably 10 miles long today. The awakening's here.
Go ahead.
Paul.
And what I wanted to say, Senator Cruz and Senator Johnson, thank you very much for allowing us and the leadership of Brian. Here's the key issue, because you talked, Senator Johnson, about Americans unifying. At the beginning of this, we know right now that Omicron is at the lowest risk variant. It presents an off-ramp for the government, an exit strategy. We know that the vaccine does not stop transmission. But here's the key. At the beginning of this, for 2 years now, it was the trucker who faced the initial Wuhan strain, the most virulent strain. When the government told everyone to lock down and to remote work, it was the trucker who kept the supply chains going and kept the country on its feet. It was the trucker who faced this virus for 2 years. Now with the lowest strain of variant, you are telling the trucker, with the exit strategy we have, that you can apply your trade. It absolutely makes no sense. It's upside down.
Well, and the grocery clerk, and the nurses,
Right.
and the doctors. The doctors,
Firefighters.
Yes.
No, I mean, we spent a year with politicians giving all these rhetoric about heroes, and they turn around and say, all right, let's fire the heroes. Like, make up your damn mind.
Right.
They're the heroes.
And Ted, just so you know, so Paul Alexander's put together really the compendium of over 140 studies talking
150.
about that shows natural immunity works. Yeah, he was up in Canada with the truckers.
Yes.
You were being threatened with arrest.
Yes.
Dr. Corey testified a number of times before my committees on early treatment. Corticosteroids, you led the way, a different path to treatment as opposed to ventilators, which aren't particularly successful. So I mean, these are also heroes of the
No
pandemic.
doubt.
You know, I'm honored to sort of be part of the People's Convoy and support them, because we need a voice. We're being ignored, right? And when you look at those emergency powers and the mandates, there's a lot of secondary ones that rippled through society. Like, I feel like, this extended emergency, when you look at the impacts on society, like, there's all these secondary, it seems like society's gone mad. Like, if you look at my specialty, I'm a physician. I mean, we're restricted from practicing medicine the way we always have, making decisions based on our experience, our expertise, our reading of the literature. We're told what medicines to use. We're told what medicines not to use. And there's actually corruption around that.
Sure.
I mean, we're using ineffective medicines and not able to use the good ones. And then to talk about things, right? Like open and honest scientific debate. We have all these social media channels and the press. I mean, you can't discuss certain medicines. So like, I mean, it's not just those mandates. I mean, we're really sick as a society here. And like, when you see the people standing up, and I wish you guys had come to Hagerstown, I mean, you got to see the people showing up. I mean, the way they talk, I mean, you really need to come down there.
Yeah.
It's incredibly moving. I mean, people are really hurt, but they are coming together, and there is that unity, and they're coming from all sides of the aisle. I mean, it's not about politics down there. It's about like really core things. It's about freedoms and about going back to normal life. I mean, he just extended the emergency powers now.
Yep.
Where's
Why?
the emergency?
Yeah,
I mean, this is absurd.
let's hope it's over.
And when I see, it's not just as part of the convoy, there's a couple of doctors. I mean, we've written a declaration against these mandates and against a lot. The lack of recognition of national immunity was always absurd.
Yep.
I mean, it violates some of the central tenets
Sure.
of medicine, right? And we have over 20,000 physicians and scientists from around the world who've signed on to those declarations, calling out the illegitimacy and lack of logic about a lot of these mandates. And I like what Brian said. He doesn't need the science to show the injustice of the mandates. But there's a lot of science to show that these mandates have absolutely no place, and they're hurting people.
You're familiar with the Great Barrington Declaration, right? That was October 2020. laying out right there, there's a different path in terms of responding to this. And what did Fauci and Collins do? They'd have emails between themselves.
Yep.
We need to
Yep.
destroy these people reputationally. Somebody from Oxford, from Harvard, from Stanford. We need to destroy these people that are opposed to our solution, the only solution, okay, the only narrative. Let's hear from the other folks that tell us your story.
Jerry Stens. I came here from Poland in 1995, and I really good remember how Poland was in 80s. It's the place where solidarity started, and the whole movement in Europe. We did it peacefully. I came in Christmas Eve of 1995, and Christmas Day, it was my first day at work. And now I'm driving.
Where did you come to? Where do you live now?
Now I live in Florida, but I came to Chicago. So now I drive truck for 27 years,
Right.
and now I feel it's like deja vu. I escaped from the country
Yep.
to get the freedom, and now I'm in the country where we need to get that freedom back. Basically, this is my story.
No, we hear that time and time again. People who escape communism, all of a sudden they're kind of recognizing, and they're very concerned about what's happening in this country.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Well,
Sir.
And my dad came from Cuba and was in prison and tortured in Cuba. So I understand very
Exactly.
directly that freedom is precious and it can be taken away, and very quickly the next generation can discover they don't have what their parents and grandparents had. And I think we're at exactly an inflection point like that.
Yeah.
My name is Alan Kelly. I'm a 28-year fetching truck driver. Me and my wife run team.
No offense, but if you were 28,
28 years, right.
you can party if you're 28 because you lived a heck of a life.
I felt like I was 28 coming back with the People's Convoy. I'll tell you that. It was like, it was just so energizing. But anyway, I have a 1-year-old grandson and I have an 8-year-old grandson. And I'm here so that they have the freedoms, maybe more freedoms and a better life than I had, because I have had a great life and I've had lots of freedoms and I've had lots of experiences, and I want them to have the same thing. I have kids, my kids are old enough to have kids.
Right.
Some of their friends are school teachers and stuff like that. They've lost their jobs. We come from a small town in Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, not far from here. It's just, I'm here for the mother that we were talking to on the way from Adelanto to Hagerstown that hasn't talked to her daughter in 6 months because she's not vaccinated and her kids won't talk to her. She was in tears. We've had a movement like no other, like no presidential candidate, like no senator, like no congressman, like no governor coming across this country. We've had millions and millions of people. There hasn't been a handful of bridges we haven't seen somebody. They're coming out of the woods on their four-wheelers. And when you're driving under these overpasses and you look up at the people's faces, and millions, yeah, it was tens of thousands, and it turned to hundreds of thousands, and I went into the millions. And I've never seen a presidential candidate or at any level have what we just had. And I think that speaks volumes.
They're crying.
Yep.
You can see
We've
them crying.
we've already won because we've opened their hearts. And once their hearts are open, they can't be closed. And it's just, I'm really upset that none of our congressmen and senators and stuff like that have come out to give us the time or day up till this point, and we appreciate you guys so much for that.
Sure.
And I have the list. I know the 47 people that voted to keep the Emergency Powers Act. I know the ones that didn't vote, and I know the ones that did vote. And we're gonna hold them accountable, because honestly, they're not down here.
Yep.
They're at their homes having their cocktail parties and not listening to the people or working for the people that are paying them, but that gave them that lavish lifestyle that they have. And we're gonna hold people accountable that don't listen to us. And that includes everybody that did vote for it. If they don't continue to fight for us, we were paying attention, we know who's who. We need to take back our school boards, our town selectmen, city mayors. It all starts there.
Yep.
Because it's all been infiltrated. It's all corrupt. We have real science. We have conflicting information from doctors right here versus the CDC. Okay, there's medicines that can help people. People has lost their families. They've died. They weren't even allowed in to see them for their last minutes of life. Imagine if I couldn't imagine not seeing my wife or my mom or dad in their last minutes. I mean, I just couldn't imagine it. It's unconscionable what they've done to the American people, and we need to start. And the people are going to start. Me especially. It's not a right issue. It's not a left issue, like Brian said. It's a we the people issue, and there's rhinos on both sides, and we're going to hold them accountable. So the ones that fight for us, for the right thing, and work for the people, they're going to stay. The ones that don't, we're going to try to get them to go.
Yep.
And this is a lot. And I do want to say, if this is messed up again, you're fired. And I promise you it's going to happen. I mean, the American people, or we're going to hold the people that work for us accountable.
This convoy has developed a very powerful voice across America through social media, even if the mainstream media doesn't want to cover us. Everyone knows this is happening. Everybody knows that it's moving across. And everybody is opening up their eyes, and they are not afraid to talk anymore. They're not afraid
There's
to stand
people that are
up.
scared to come down here and talk because of what the government has done.
Oh, yeah.
They have made people feel afraid.
Yep.
I'm very nervous. That's why I started out with, yeah.
But
They shouldn't be. This is America. We should not. Do we have a right to peacefully and law-abidingly assemble and
Of course.
That's why it's in the
do we
First
have
Amendment.
that right?
And you
Senator?
guys have, absolutely, and you guys have discovered firsthand.
Is it illegal to have that? Is it illegal to peacefully assemble
Of
and
course not.
following the laws?
Of course not.
Okay.
But y'all have seen firsthand how the corporate media is fundamentally corrupt.
Right. Big tech,
Oh,
big
no.
pharma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all a problem.
You're exactly right, and we've seen, particularly concerning COVID and mandates, we've seen a particularly nasty combination of government authoritarians. We saw this in Canada, with Canadian politicians reaching out to their buddies in big tech and getting GoFundMe to go steal $10 million from the Canadian truckers. And we saw it here in the United States with Jen Psaki from the White House press briefing room demanding of Spotify they pull Joe Rogan down because he dared ask some questions on this.
Right.
And that nexus of power of government authoritarians, big tech, and then the corporate media lying about it.
It's a
When they
definition
can
of
silence the
fascism.
sitting president of the United
Yeah.
States, it's a real
That's
problem.
exactly
isn't
right.
it?
But what is more powerful is the American people rising up and speaking out. So what y'all are doing is incredibly important.
Thank you for your time.
By the way, I'm seeing the same thing in Wisconsin, people coming up to me with tears in their eyes. Those that are awakened, and again, you've got to bust out from the media. Because here's what we're up against. Talk about COVID, but you can apply this to just about any other issue. The body count now is over 960,000, over 6 million globally. The human toll, the economic devastation, again, what we've done to our children. Do you think they'll ever admit they were wrong?
No.
First of all, they at this point, they can't afford to admit they're wrong, but here's the key point. It's the administration, the healthcare agencies, it's Big Pharma. Have you seen all the ads for Big Pharma on then the corporate media, the legacy media, the mainstream media, whatever you want to call them, then the big tech, social media giants. They have the power to make it very difficult, not impossible, to prove them wrong. So the only way we overcome this vast cartel of power is with what you're doing.
Joe Biden said it was unexcusable whenever, under Trump's administration, when there's 250,000 people that passed from the virus. There has been far more than that under his watch. So where's his accountability?
Look at how he scapegoated the unvaxxed. I mean, they saw the vaccines weren't working as well as we all hoped and prayed they would. They're not as safe. So right around that June, July time period, they knew this wasn't over. They had to blame somebody, so they decided to divide America even further. That's just been their strategy. They won't accept the consequences. They won't accept responsibility. They had to blame someone, so they scapegoated the unvaxxed.
Senator Johnson, earlier you mentioned something, and I want to quickly mention before we wrap up, because I know time is precious. You've mentioned that, well, obviously everybody knows they politicized this thing from the start, right? But the one thing that was certain is it was either politics or power. Now, here on Capitol Hill, you'd assume the first thing is politics. And that would have been fine, because that's nothing you don't expect up here. But when it's power, that's a problem. But what you said is something else is at play here, but you didn't name it. And between the two, it was as certain as a mathematical proof that it wasn't politics and it was power. Because if it were just politics, the moment you divide the American public by vaxxed and unvaxxed and identify your enemy as unvaxxed, well, you'd have just let them all not be vaxxed and then die of COVID, wouldn't you?
Well, don't forget
And
money.
there's only half as many people.
Because there's a whole lot of money being made also.
Right?
I want you guys to hear from two more people.
Yeah, the last
Go
part
ahead.
you got
Yeah,
definitely.
that's
I'm gonna
fine, then we'll
stand
circle
up for
back.
this part if I can.
Bring it.
Through the convoy, there's been people that have walked up to us and told us a story, whispered in our ears, told us all kinds of things that have gone on with their life and how things were affected. One man gave me an American flag that he carried in his rucksack all through all through his Afghanistan deployment. He believed that it kept him alive and safe. And he told me to put this in my pocket and bring it to DC. Now I completed that mission. I brought it here for him. This young man here, 18 years old, only planned on being with us for one city, from Adelanto to our next stop. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
He has stuck with us this entire time. He flies out tonight. It's emotional when we see guys like him leave us, but we know that they're still supporting us. I did my mission. I want publicly, for the man that gave me this, to give it to this man, to carry with you for the rest of your life, for being a part of this people's convoy, and to remember why you stood up. I'll let him
Tell us your story. Why you joined the convoy? Why did you stick with it?
Well, I got a picture to show y'all real quick.
Yep.
This here is me in middle school against them, March for Our Lives against the NRA. This wasn't me thinking freely. This was the school system. I'm from California. And you guys ever ride horses or anything? It's like, I feel like a horse being stuck in a stall, being let out into the pasture, traveling the country. Let me break that down for you. I've been in a horse stall in California, and my pen didn't get open to go out to the pasture until I left the borderline into Arizona. It's sickening, and I want to cry. I haven't cried since my daddy's funeral about 6 years ago. Excuse me. Sorry.
You got it, buddy. We got you.
We got it.
My daddy served for these colors. This Constitution, I'm not going to throw like that now because I can't go to Los Angeles and do street photography without being kicked out because I'm not vaccinated. I didn't have prom. I graduated early. I didn't, homecoming games. I don't know what that feels like. My mom, she went to school boards and fought for us. I guess this is why I'm here. Yeah, I think this is why I'm able to stand up to corrupt politicians that's taken away our, excuse my French, our freedoms. I grew up watching this place on TV, and I never thought I would be sitting here fighting for my own freedom. I have a beautiful niece. She turns Tuesday this year. And I just want to make sure when I have my dream ranch, she could come to me and I have the rights, the freedoms to protect her without having the government be involved and feeling like I shouldn't be able to defend myself. I can't get a gun until I'm 21 and I live alone in California. Gavin Newsom ain't doing nothing but to protect and corrupt criminals. Look at the $0 bill. And I'm supposed to live in that where somebody could just break into my house and I can defend myself? That's not living. I have dreams about me protecting myself and I'm going to jail. Imagine going to prison for protecting yourself. I'm 18 years old. I literally had that dream. Another thing that's really big on me is how diverse this country is becoming. I've been counseled out by my own skin color shades. I've been counseled out by people who don't even know me. They just see how to wear a dress and call me Uncle Tom, Coon. They see it all over TV. And it's publicized stuff. It's like candy. I'm not candy. the media's got this all flipped. And being firsthand as an American patriot, somebody who has scars on himself from working in tractors, falling off horses, making sure somebody has a buffalo or some American Angus to eat on their table, you know, go in college, you know, I'm just normal. I'm an American, but they see this and they think it's all full of white supremacists, racist, and I feel like because of my color, because of where I'm from, California, I'm breaking all these stereotypes. So there's no excuse. People need to hear the stories of the American people. It's not racist. I've been treated nothing but love. I've grown. My life has forever changed because of the convoy. I would go back home feeling like a horse and locked up in this horse pen again until I could be able to get my career going. I can't even get that grown without having to be forced to be vaccinated to go to school.
Well, let me say thank you for your courage speaking out, and your voice is powerful. And you're right that even in blue states like California, there are millions and millions of people that are frustrated, that want to be free. And in some states, particularly blue states, a lot of them are intimidated to be silent. But your voice, you're speaking for a lot of other people. You're speaking for a lot of other Californians. You're speaking for a lot of other African Americans. You're speaking for a lot of Americans. And that is powerful. I'll also say, by the way, I want to extend you an invitation. Come to Texas. We'll protect your rights. You can keep bear arms in Texas, and you're already dressed for it. You know, you said people don't like how you dress as a Texan. I'm like, I don't even understand what the hell they're saying. I think you look great. But so it's an open invitation. The great state of Texas beckons you.
Thank you, sir.
Another gentleman that has rode with us from the very beginning. He's got a remarkable story himself, and he's been right by our side from day one in this. He's seen the emotional roller coaster that this journey has been.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Senators, for hearing us today. My name is Ron Coleman. I'm from Reno, Nevada. I own a small trucking company, or at least I will until next week, maybe. Who knows how far that goes.
Yeah.
But my daughter said to me before I left, Dad, you can't afford to do this with everything that's come over the last 2 years. And I looked at her and I said, I can't afford not to do this.
Yeah.
This has been an emotional roller coaster that you cannot imagine, you can't even put words to. And in reality, it comes down to some things very much like this. This note wrapped around a cookie from a family. If I may, I'll read this. Dear trucker, I admire your courage and your determination in doing this. I will support you in prayer for a victory over the sad oppression that is going on. Thank you for fighting for all of us. A mother of 3, God bless you. I have a box full of these letters. I have 4-year-old girls coming up, hugging me, and handing me crayon notes. We love you. Thank you for fighting for our future freedoms. In a crayon note. I tell them, I am just like the Pony Express of the days gone by. And I will collect your tears, I will collect your messages, I will collect your heart, and I will take it with me to Washington, D.C., and I will deliver it. And that mission is partially complete for me personally. But I also tell them, the truckers are the tip of the spear, and the body of the spear is the people. We are nothing without the people. So this isn't about the truckers. We are awakening people all over this world. We are awakening, as Alan said, millions of people seeing their tears, hugs, to where I'm having to hold them from collapsing in sob. This is a movement that the people have brought forth that says our God-given rights have been trampled on from our Constitution. And he's right. Our Constitution and 56 very fine gentlemen sat in a room in Philadelphia and they pounded this out. They knew this day would come. This is why we have these writings. This is why we believe in these rights. And moving forward, we want to make sure that every single American, and you're right, Senator Cruz, these people are coming and they're waking up.
Yep,
And,
absolutely.
and when they awaken, they will not go back to sleep. And we're bringing them forward. And we were bringing them with us. And I say to them, call every single official that you can, every politician that you can, and let's start burning up these phone lines and letting them know, let Nancy Pelosi know that the power is in the people and we are coming.
Amen.
Thank
First
you.
of all, God bless her for doing that. I can see you're compelled, and all of your stories here are compelling. What's going through my mind, I wish the press would have been here to see the entire thing. I think we should bring him in right now. I think we should,
So a chance for a little more
Oh, I'm
personal
sorry.
choice.
And then
Sorry,
welcome.
hi. I drive a 1-ton truck, and apparently you cannot park it in downtown DC.
She's from your district.
I'm from West Texas, sir.
Awesome, where?
Out in Midland, I own a hotshot trucking company in the oil fields.
Fantastic.
So I came up here with, I'm keeping my guys working down there, and came up here and brought about 20 people from Texas from me.
Wonderful.
We tried to organize the state as best we could within 12 days. If you've never done grassroots, it's a wild ride.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd be here, to be honest. So I pretty much said I can do oil field 24/7, or I could do this. It's real hard to do both.
I understand.
So this is just, everybody's here for the same reason, for our freedoms, for our children's freedoms, for the generations to come, their freedoms too. And Texas is a wonderful state. I think it's harder for Texas because we stood up for our freedoms a lot sooner than a lot of other states. And I think it's just overpass of people. I think there's a dozen overpasses that did not have people on it, from Texas all the way to here. That we're the majority. We may be we're not silent anymore.
Yep.
We are not silent anymore. And people, you make eye contact with them, they're just like, thank you. Thank you for standing up for us. Thank you for being here for us. Thank you for watching over our children. They just say thank you. They're so grateful, and that's what we're all here for. We're here to do that, to stand for everybody's freedoms. Whatever side of the table you stand on, it's for your freedom too, whether we agree or disagree. It's okay. That's what makes this country beautiful, and that's what we stand for under that Constitution with each other.
This convoy has really shown the heart and soul of the United States and what we truly are about. And I really implore your colleagues to come down, you and your colleagues to all come down on both sides of the aisle and meet with these drivers. There's so many stories like it, to meet with these people down there. Remember, it's not just truckers, it's people
everything.
from all over America that are down there. They come from every jurisdiction. I know of 30, 40, 50 of your own constituents
They
that
flew
are
in from
truck
Hawaii.
They flew in from Hawaii. to
Rented
see-
RVs.
It's hard to drive a truck from Hawaii.
Right?
Yeah, I tried.
I know you want to bring the press in to, because it's times here. I want to just, to wrap it up. This really is a spiritual war, and we've awakened a lot of people across the country. We have a pandemic of unchecked power. That's what it is.
Yep.
And as soon as you put man's power above God's power, you know who wins. But we've got a pendulum that's swinging from woke to the Great Awakening, and there's nobody who's seen that more firsthand than the truckers who drove across the country to see this. And we don't have our freedoms. We're here because Americans will not have freedoms as long as emergency powers exist and continue to be abused. It's why we're here. We need our freedom back. We need accountability. We need investigations. We appreciate any help you can offer.
Absolutely.
I sprang from the Tea Party movement, 2010, and I still don't belong here, quite honestly. But my rallying cry,
That means you do belong here.
my rallying cry back then was, this is a fight for freedom.
Sure.
It's not someone else's fight. This is our fight. It's a fight we have to win.
Yeah.
These are the embodiment of really what happened there, and all I can say is what I sensed in 2010, the reason I stepped up the plate, that movement back then, this is way more powerful. It just is, and I think it's far less partisan.
Yeah.
Which is the good sign. So again, God bless all of you. I think your stories are unbelievably powerful. I didn't know really what to expect. I didn't expect the tears. I'm not surprised by him because I see him in Wisconsin all the time. But this is moving. I think we need to get the press in here. We got to figure out how we can. I mean, this needs to be obviously the video taken here. This needs to be documented. This needs to get out on the internet. This needs to be shared.
Yes.
I'd share with the news media. So.
Okay, we're gonna bring them in, and then they'll just probably shout questions at everyone. So if you all don't want to answer, we have two. So say that.